Welcome in. Happy Monday morning. You're listening to Morning JOX here on JOX 94.5. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell here with you, getting your week started off in the Magic City. A lot to get to from over the weekend. We had the completion of the NFL draft, so a lot of drama all throughout the weekend there that we will certainly get into and discuss. We had the Braves continuing their winning ways on the diamond. We had a interesting but unfortunate game here in Protective Stadium on Friday to get to with the Birmingham Stallions and a particular type of play that seems to only happen in the state of Alabama for some reason. But that unfortunately, I've been on the losing side of that play twice now in my lifetime. But we'll get into all of that as well. But Damien, I know you had a big weekend celebrating your birthday there down in NOLA. So how was I'm glad to see you made it back alive. How was the weekend?
It was great. It was great. We had a wonderful time bringing in the year 29, man. It's very humbling. One, you kind of realize that you might, being in our 20s, people like to say that we're young, but we're not as young as we used to be. So recovery is a little bit harder than it used to be. But no, the city of New Orleans is still top tier destination place, man. It's different. I guess this was this first time I've been there while a sporting event was happening. Of course, everybody, mostly Saints fans. A lot of them didn't know who Tyler Shuck was. That was kind of a unique conversation. And a lot of it went back to, why didn't we get Shedeur? The city would love Shedeur. And it's something we'll get to just throughout the NFL draft discussions. But overall, man, I had a wonderful time. Had to, we ate good, partied hard. Bourbon Street is going to Bourbon Street. But overall, man, it was just it was a wonderful weekend. Now, I am feeling it a little bit harder than I used to back in the day. But listen, I'm here. We're having a good time. And it was a great weekend. It really was.
Well, that's all you can really ask for there. But all right, let's get to some of the things like Damien was mentioning that happened there in the NFL draft. Tyler Shuck being the second quarterback taken by the Saints in the second round. That was a bit of a big surprise there as things got underway in day two. But how about Alabama and Auburn? How did they fare when all was said and done in the draft? So you had Alabama. They finished with 7 players drafted overall. Auburn had 3 players drafted. And Jarquez Hunter, he was the first player off the board there in the 4th round to the Los Angeles Rams. You also had Keandre Lambert-Smith. He went off the board to the Chargers. And you had Jalen McLeod, the edge rusher. He was the 3rd and final draft pick there for the Auburn Tigers. And then, of course, for Alabama, you had a couple of picks on day 1, and Tyler Booker going to the Cowboys and Jahad Campbell going to the Eagles. You also then had the big one we were all wondering about was Jalen Milroe, right? He was there day 1 of the draft, accepted the invite. There was some belief that maybe there was a team that had fallen in love with him and would select him in the first round, but that did not happen. He had to settle to be a 3rd round selection, and in a fun bit of circumstance, he ends up in Seattle with the Seattle Seahawks. So as if you saw my post on social media after that, essentially the Alabama traded Jalen Milroe for Ryan Grubb, and I think that we should all be happy with the way that deal ended up. So that's just, some things happen for a reason, right?
Exactly.
It's just, you never know. You can connect the dots in a lot of things. But yeah, so Jalen Milroe, he's going to be a member of the Seattle Seahawks, and the belief is that they've already, the coaching staff there has already come out and said, we drafted him to be a quarterback. We believe that he has, the skill set to be a quarterback, but they understand that he's a guy that's going to need some time to develop, but that they expect him to be able to contribute early on in certain packages, right, because of his athleticism. You would think you would find a way to get him on the field, but he lands somewhere where you've got Sam Darnold in place as the quarterback now for, you would imagine, at least the next 2 years or so. So some time for him to develop behind a veteran. And it, not the worst landing spot in the world, right? You got Jackson Smith and Jigba. You've got, a budding kind of wide receiver 1 there. You've got some solid running backs there in the stable as well. Offensive line could be a little bit better for the Seahawks, but again, in terms of a situation where he's not going to be expected to be the starting quarterback anytime soon, he gets to go somewhere that's going to tailor the offense around him and his skill set. I think you could have done a lot worse than Seattle for Jalen Milroe. I think you got to be pretty happy with that landing spot if you're him.
Yeah, and also, I mean, there's no pressure of you going in and being the number one guy. They just signed Sam Darnold. How many good to great years does he still have left in him? And you're going into a situation where, hey, if you're a project guy, they got you in the 4th round anyway. So I think if you're Jalen Milroe, it's just the developmental stage of things. Like, it's just, okay, how do I find myself, maintaining a, 8 to 10 year career in this league of just figuring things out. Athletically, we know what you're blessed, you're gifted. We know what to expect on that front. But I think that now with under the new regime in Seattle, everything's brand new. So there's no telling what this offense could potentially be. But also, if you're Jalen Milroe, okay, yeah, nobody's expecting you to come in and be the day one guy. There's still things you need to improve on, but you got your name called. That's the best thing. Now it's just, okay, how do I stay in the league? That's the biggest question mark. And again, they have, I think Drew Lock is back, and there's no guarantee that you're going to be QB, QB2, QB3, whatever, but you're working to just maintain a roster spot because there's no guarantee after pretty much the first 2 rounds, to be honest, of guys that are going to continue to be in the league. But now all that really doesn't matter anymore. It's, okay, I'm on the team, I'm on the squad. How do I find myself, either getting some significant playing time? How do I find myself in packages that could help this team? What can I do to help this team get better? And again, if we've seen good Sam Darnold last year, we've also seen bad Sam Darnold for the majority of his career.
You mean, his entire career besides last year.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's, okay, if you do what you're supposed to do, handle your business, there's no telling that you could possibly be on the field as a rookie. But also, they're not expecting you to be out there. But if you find yourself out there because Sam Darnold's playing piss poor, hey, you're one play away.
I was about to say, in the 3rd round, right, you're not expected to come in and be the guy immediately necessarily, but we've seen 3rd round picks, whether it's a Russell Wilson, a Dak Prescott, those are guys that we've seen in the past. You've got something there, right? When you're a 3rd round pick at quarterback, that's not a throwaway, we hope you develop into a backup kind of thing. We see you potentially being a starter in this league, but we know it's going to take some time for you to get there. You're not a guy that we can bring in this year and plug in there and hope to see, some progress. So, yeah, definitely an interesting landing spot for Milroe there, but he goes in the 3rd round to the Seattle Seahawks. Going through the rest of it for Alabama, 4 other guys you had drafted. You had a pair of guys in the 4th round. You had Malachi Moore. He goes to the New York Jets. You have Q Robinson. He goes in the 4th round as well to the Denver Broncos. So some nice selections there. Then you have Robbie Oots, the tight end. He also goes to the Seahawks alongside Jalen Milroe. So a little bit of, they needed a little more on the Ryan Grubb side of things. They didn't think that the trade was quite even. So we threw in Robbie Oots and got Grubb here to Tuscaloosa. And then, but that was in the 5th round. And then the 6th round, the final pick for the Alabama Crimson Tide was Tim Smith, the defensive lineman. He went to the Indianapolis Colts. So there are your 7 Alabama players that were drafted, and we'll go through. We can go through a little bit later because there were other players that signed as undrafted free agents right afterwards. There are a number of players for both Alabama and Auburn that have now found themselves at least working to make a practice squad. They're going to go to camp for these NFL teams and hopefully find a way to make a roster. But yes, we will go ahead and throw it out there because I'm sure some people are going to text in about it. Yes, Peyton Thorne did. He did sign a contract. He's going to go learn from Joe Burrow. So he's going to be in Bengals camp.
Yeah. Congratulations.
That one shocked me.
You ain't the only one, brother.
As did the announcement that Jim Harbaugh is taking a flyer and signed DJ Uiagalelei so he's going to Chargers camp.
Uh-huh. It'll be quick. It'll be quick. Get ready to learn UFL, buddy.
I don't know what else we need to see from certain people, but I guess everyone needs bodies. So
right.
You need people out there for practice sake, but those were surprising. Those were surprising to say the least. But
Glad
yeah,
you're taking
well,
the high road,
yeah,
Conrad.
yeah. Well, good, but hey, good for him. Hopefully, here Cincinnati's nice this time of year. So
Yeah,
we'll,
exactly. Catch
yeah.
you a couple Reds games while you're up there. Enjoy it.
Yeah, so that was certainly interesting. But some other notable things from the draft. Obviously, you had the Shedeur Sanders saga, where he was not selected in day one. We talked about that a lot on Friday. I said it on here. I think you agreed with me as well on Friday, but I thought Shedeur was going to go in the first half of the second round, right? It was okay. Sure, the whole falling out of the first round, we had heard that rumor, and so it was kind of believable, but you're not going to fall out of the second or third. Surely you're not going to fall to the third day of the draft, and yet that's exactly what happened. As Shedeur Sanders, he ends up falling to the fifth round until he's finally picked up by the Cleveland Browns. But the moment when the Cleveland Browns are on the clock in the third round and they take Dylan Gabriel ahead of Shedeur Sanders, that I will say that was the moment where, for me, it started to go, okay, this is weird now.
Yep.
And this has gone from, okay, sure, maybe they just, some of the NFL, front offices didn't see the same thing that the draft analysts did or that we did as fans watching Colorado the last couple of years. But at the point that he was ultimately selected, it got to the point where somebody just needed to take him because you were going to get such absurd value for where you were taking him. I mean, regardless of what you think of the guy, this was essentially a unanimous selection in a lot of people's eyes as the number 2, at worst, number 3 quarterback in this draft class. And you're able to get him in the 5th round. And, and I think obviously everybody had their own opinion on this on social media over the weekend, but I don't know how you take anything away from it other than the NFL doesn't think he's as good as maybe some people in college think that he is, on top of the fact that there is clearly something there from a personality standpoint that certain teams just didn't want to touch. And look, and who knows, maybe Tyler Shuck turns out to be an excellent quarterback in the NFL. I'm sorry, you can't tell me that a guy with the tape that he has, which again, it's not bad, but was anybody just wowed watching Louisville games this last year? He's 25, 26 years old. He's had 3 career-ending injury or season-ending injuries already. He's been in college for 7 years, and that guy can get selected ahead of Shedeur Sanders. Like, you can't tell me it's just totally a talent thing at that point, because I know a lot of people were arguing, oh, well, this is just the NFL saying he's really not that good. I'm like, the NFL and people going, oh, well, the NFL's not going to, they're not going to pass up a guy like Shedeur if somebody really thinks he can come in and change that franchise. I don't buy that. I think there's been clear cases in the past where certain NFL franchises are willing to maybe make a stand against certain players because they don't want all the baggage that comes with it. And that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Just admit that.
Yeah, just can we just admit that that's part of it, right?
Exactly.
It's not straight up a talent thing, because you can't tell me that all of these other quarterbacks who literally every single person evaluated, and none of these guys were rated ahead of Shedeur Sanders, and yet they all get selected ahead of him. Just admit what it is. You didn't want to deal with the personality concerns. You didn't want to deal with Dion. You didn't want to deal with all that, and that's perfectly fine, but it just became very obvious as the weekend went on that this was more than a talent thing or a skill thing with Shedeur.
1,000%. Like, as soon as that Dylan Gabriel pick, which crazy enough, he also got picked by the same team that picked Dylan Gabriel in the round before.
Which I actually think is smart, right? Because you need a quarterback.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, may the best man win.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that was a bad decision.
But also, I love Dylan Gabriel. I loved him when he was at Oregon, Oklahoma, even when he was the first Heupel disciple that I remember in UCF. Like, he was the guy. But at no point did I ever think that he was a better quarterback than Shedeur Sanders when I was watching Shedeur Sanders at Colorado. Like, I don't think Dylan Gabriel brings as much value to Colorado if Shedeur Sanders wasn't there. Now, if Shedeur Sanders is at Oregon, sweet Jesus, there's no telling what could have happened. But I think that the NFL, you can't turn on the tape and tell me that Shedeur isn't better than a couple of the guys that were drafted ahead of him. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. The Dylan Gabriel pick was the one that was like, all right, let's be real. Like, let's everybody look, because I think it was that moment where everybody pretty much around the world were kind of just, okay, now there's something up. Like, okay, y'all. And I mean, I feel sorry for Dylan Gabriel because he's like, I didn't ask to be here. Like they drafted me. But also when you're looking at, okay, is the NFL just trying to prove a point? But also, again, you can look at it from this perspective. You're the Cleveland Browns. You got him in the 5th round, and you look like an absolute genius if he does work out. But also when you've got, Deshaun Watson, who's worth $6 billion on your cap, Joe Flacco, he's on the absolute last leg of his NFL
Well, as
career.
Dion said over the weekend, they're the same age essentially. So,
Right.
yeah.
Like Joe Flacco's like, oh yeah, I remember. He could look at Shedeur and be like, oh yeah, I remember when you were born because your dad was playing such and such, or like he had just got done with the Baltimore Ravens, and like he can have those conversations where you say, I've seen your dad play. Kenny Pickett, he just is not a starter in the NFL. It's proven that Pittsburgh showed you, like, yeah, he's Super Bowl winner last year. You can take that with a grain of salt. It is what it is. And then you add Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Like the whole quarterback room is just kind of a collection of bodies. And if you're Kevin Stefanski, you're probably looking just, can somebody take this job? Like, could somebody win this? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. And again, I think the Browns, getting him at that spot again, it's an incredible value because you could have a future 10, this could be a guy that starts in the NFL for the next 10 years and you got him in the 5th round. Now he could be a complete and total bust. He absolutely could be, just like any of these guys. But again, it's, and for example, when the Steelers, when they kept passing up on it, the Steelers don't have anybody. Like that was one for me where that to me said, okay, you're still planning on bringing in Aaron Rodgers and you don't want to have those two personalities in a quarterback room together, which again, perfectly fine with that. But it's just, those are just kind of the bizarre situations that when you start thinking about them, it's okay. Well, it seems like maybe they're just, they're choosing to go in a different direction. And again, they have every right to do that. And I'm not sitting here, trying to tell you that, oh, I can't believe Shedeur was a 1st round pick. I'm not making that argument at all. I had no problem with him falling to the 2nd, 3rd, or 2nd or 3rd rounds. But when it got to the 4th and 5th rounds, like you can't convince me that this was not a guy. I mean, at the beginning of the draft process, like after the season was over, I'm not talking before the season, then we saw him play this year and it changed. Like after the season was over, it was, is he going to be the number 1 pick or is Cam Ward? Like we were debating him versus Cam Ward. And somehow in this process, Cam Ward just clearly became the number 1 guy, and Shedeur fell from being the number 2 overall pick, is what we all thought was going to happen, to a 5th round pick. Like that's wild. That kind of thing doesn't happen. I mean, we talk all the time about watching the slides of Aaron Rodgers or Brady Quinn or some of these other guys you've seen in the first rounds of these drafts. We're talking about a guy that he fell to the 5th round. And I think that's where some people are like, oh, well, he's really not that good. Okay, but the 5th round, like, there's a big difference in a 2nd and 3rd round pick and a 5th round pick.
Right.
And that's where I think it just kind of opened a lot of people's eyes. But a lot of you seem to have some thoughts on this as well. 205-834-9450. What do you think about what happened with Shedeur? What are your thoughts on the NFL draft overall? Are you happy with Alabama? They had 7 players selected, Auburn with 3. What are some maybe some of the best drafts that you thought? Are you happy with how your team ended up at the end of the weekend? And of course, we've got some other fun facts like players that thought the grass was greener and now find themselves not drafted in the NFL draft. So we'll go look at some of those players as well. But definitely want to get your reaction on what happened with Shedeur over the weekend in the NFL draft. 205-834-9450. You're listening to the Monday morning edition of Morning JOX here on JOX 94.5. 623, welcome back in here. Morning Jocks, Conrad and Damian with you until 7 o'clock, but we're actually with you until 10 o'clock because we will be with you for McElroy and Kublik in the morning. We'll be holding down the fort again this morning, so Cole and Greg should be back tomorrow here from 7 to 10. But, of course, after we get done, we'll hand it off to three-man front. They'll be with you from 10 to 2, Pat, Landrum, and Molly, and then the Paul Feinbaum Show from 2 to 6. All right, so talking about just kind of putting a bow on everything that happened in the NFL draft over the weekend. A lot of the takeaways, Alabama, 7 players drafted overall. Auburn had 3 players drafted overall out of the SEC here. Georgia actually led the way in the conference. They had 13 players selected in the NFL draft. Texas had 12, Ole Miss had 8, and then you had Alabama, LSU, and Florida tied with 7. Vanderbilt came in last. They had 1 player drafted, but hey.
Listen, you got one.
That's right.
You got one.
You didn't get shut out.
At all.
That's what it's all about. So that's kind of your report from the SEC side of things there in the NFL draft. But the big story, of course, was Shedeur Sanders and his fall from a projected first-round pick to the 5th round, where he was taken by the Cleveland Browns. 2 rounds, though, after they had already taken Dylan Gabriel. So as we talked about, an interesting quarterback situation there. So Deshaun Watson, he is out this year with an injury, but he's still under contract. You've got Joe Flacco you've brought back. You've got Dylan Gabriel. You've got Shedeur Sanders. It's an interesting mesh of personalities and talents in that quarterback room. So, but a lot of the drama this weekend was around the debate around Shedeur. Why did he fall as far as he did? Was it deserved? Did he, was it a talent thing? Was it because of, how he bombed his interviews, this, that, and the other? And so we've been talking about that. We've been sharing our thoughts, and y'all have chimed in with a lot of your thoughts as well on the courtesy GMC text line. So we have someone who chimes in here. They say, y'all are giving Shedeur Sanders too much credit. If he plays in the SEC or the Big Ten, his stats go down by half if he finishes the season. See, I don't agree with that. Now, do I think he has as good of stats as he did in the Big 12? No, I don't. But you also have to think, he did play with a pretty terrible offensive line and had, we could do give and take, right? If you put him on a lot of rosters in the SEC, maybe he'd have better talent around him,
right,
but he'd be going up against different competition. So I don't agree that he would have been terrible in the SEC or the Big Ten. But if you think that, that's fine. Let's see. John Mack says, hilarious that people can't understand someone failed their interviews and have shown they aren't a leader and nobody wants them on their team. The NFL does their homework. They found out all the BS that comes with Shedeur. The real world without daddy is tough. Pick up a helmet. It's almost like he went 13-12 against bad competition in the Big 12. The whole conference is a joke.
Okay, and this is okay. If that's his thought process, then this is what bothers me, because if you say the NFL does their homework and stuff, it's the same organization that drafted Johnny Manziel. Like, we know he was on.
That was the example I was going to bring up.
We know he was he was a blank up the whole time. He was off a bender playing college football.
He never watched film.
Never. And he was a first round
You're
pick.
telling me they didn't know that going into the NFL? Hey, this guy's doesn't watch film.
Right.
You think they don't know that?
Exactly. So I'm like, okay, the same guy that's pretty much the best thing that's ever walked in your program, in your shoes, at Texas A&M. You will just turn a blind eye, and then all of a sudden you just sit here and criticize Shedeur, like, oh, he's playing daddy ball and all this stuff. And it's just like, bro, you can't throw the rock and hide your hand. The same quarterback that won the Heisman Trophy for you and had all the success at Texas A&M, he didn't pan out in the NFL either. And he was a first round pick. But you worship the ground that he walks on because of who he is. It was like a crackhead playing football, man. It is known. It's evident. We've got the documentaries. Shedeur, he doesn't do anything. The camera's always around him because of his polarizing figure because of his father. But also, when you turn on the tape, it's, okay, if he isn't running for his life, you see how accurate he is with the football. And again, he's playing with talent it's substandard. But we will see the trimming of the fat in the NFL. Okay, again, he's a 5th round pick. We're having a discussion of him being a 5th round pick.
Well, and I guess, again, that's my thing, is this whole conversation is not meant to defend Shedeur Sanders, but it's the fact that, I don't think people are truly understanding what it's like to go from being a potential top 5 pick in the draft to a 5th round pick. Like that is such a we've never seen that before. Like you have never seen a prospect that was viewed the way that Shedeur Sanders was fall as far as I mean, that is astronomical. That's what the discussion is about. It's not a debate of do I think that he, turned a lot of people off with his personality? Yeah. Do I think he bombed a lot of his interviews? Yeah. If half the stories that I've heard are true, then yeah, he absolutely deserved to fall in the NFL draft. I mean, when you hear reports of him, in the middle of interviews with teams, taking personal phone calls and FaceTimes and doing all of these personal things while he's in the middle of these Zoom interviews with teams that are trying to select him, and he's making it clear that they're not a priority. Yeah, you deserve to fall for that. But going to the 5th round, like, it's wild. That is absolutely wild. And I do think that, what you bring up about Johnny Manziel, I mean, I think that's a pretty fair comparison. Now, do I think Johnny Manziel was a better college player than Shedeur was? Yeah, I mean, Johnny Manziel is one of the best college quarterbacks of all time, and I don't think Shedeur's in that category. But again, to say that two guys that have a lot of talent, I actually think when you look at Shedeur's skill set, he's probably more of an NFL style quarterback with his accuracy and all of those things. Because you knew a lot of what Johnny Manziel did, it was backyard football, right? And that works in college, but it doesn't work in the pros when everybody on the team, it's an all-star team of everybody's college roster, right? It's different. So, I mean, that's what a lot of this is about. Okay, somebody else chimes in. They say, like I've said before with Shedeur, it's a character issue and his arrogance. Teams don't want to deal with that or his dad. He probably should have kept his mouth shut and been a little more humble. Totally agree with that. I don't think that that's wrong. Don't think that that's wrong. Somebody says Johnny Manziel beat ranked teams. Shedeur Sanders did not. I mean, okay, yeah, he played in the SEC.
I'll throwing to Mike Evans. Another first, really.
That certainly didn't hurt. And I mean, you could make the same argument. Shedeur had Travis Hunter. Yeah, I'll give you that. Let's see. Doug says, let's see, what does he say? SEC had 15 of the first round picks with 9 different SEC teams represented. Yes, that is a good point. He says, so you're saying the NFL came together to make a point. The NFL will hire felons if they help. Okay, and see, that's kind of the point here is you will put up with everything that Antonio Brown brought to the table or a Josh Gordon brought to the table. And I understand the argument of, well, their talent outweighs the baggage that comes along with them because those were all world level talents. And I get that. And this could be the NFL telling you they don't view Shedeur as that kind of a talent. I think that's a totally fair point to make there. But again, to go from you can't tell me that some of these teams that needed quarterback help wouldn't have been better off in their quarterback situation by taking a guy like Shedeur Sanders when it's the value that he provided with how far he fell in the draft. I'm not saying he's owed anything or that he had to be a first round pick or a second round pick. I mean, the 5th round, like that is wild. Somebody says, without the Sanders name, would Shedeur have started on an SEC team last year? Yes.
Yes, 1,000%.
Yes. Like this dude is good. I understand a lot of people don't like him. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but it doesn't mean he's not good. Like that's the thing I think is a lot of people are there that this is a victory lap for them. Because I'll be honest, was I kind of happy that he dropped out of the first round? Yes, I was. Because I was like, all right, we're making a statement here that you can't walk around like you own the place before you've done anything on the field. I liked that. I appreciated that the NFL teams say, no, we're not wasting a first round pick on him. Because did I think he was a first round talent? Not necessarily, but teams get desperate for quarterbacks and they do stuff like that, right? But when it got to the point of where it was in the 5th round, like it's just a completely different conversation. G says, nobody's owed anything. 32 owners passed on him, so there's obviously something they didn't like. He's entitled, but with that said, he still got drafted and has a chance. Ton of other kids that put in as much work still don't get drafted. Let's talk about those kids. I mean, and again, that's a very fair point. It's just that is a situation. What we saw this weekend is something we have never seen before in the NFL draft, and I think that's what a lot of people are. Again, if it was Jalen Milroe that we were talking about that had fallen to the 6th round of the draft, more people would want to be piling on and having this conversation, right? But I guess Shedeur's a sensitive subject, as are the Sanders, and I get that, and they're very polarizing, and I understand why a lot of people don't like them, but it's just wild to see somebody that, again, was a perennial first-round quarterback pick or draft selection fall to the 5th round. into the Cleveland Browns of all that. Now, that part of it is funny. I will admit that you have to wait all that time and you still end up with the Cleveland Browns. That part of it is quite
Right.
humorous, right?
Like,
Because it's like, was the wait really worth it at that point? You know,
exactly.
You got an opportunity, and we'll see what he does from here. But oh man. All right. A lot of you continuing to chime in. All right. We'll keep getting your reaction on this. 205-834-9450. Do have some other NFL draft stuff, as well as some baseball, some stallions we want to talk about as well. But we will continue to get your reaction. 205-834-9450. You're listening to the Monday edition of Morning Jocks on Jocks 94.5. .638. Welcome back in. Morning Jocks here. Conrad and Damien getting your week started off here on Jocks 94.5, getting your reaction to everything that happened over the weekend, particularly with the NFL draft. But before we get back to that, I do want to quickly give a shout out. We did have the Birmingham Stallions in action on Friday at Protective Stadium as they took on the Memphis Showboats. And unfortunately, our worst nightmares came true, and the Birmingham Stallions found themselves on the losing end of that effort on Friday night as they fell 24-20 in overtime, the first overtime game, Damian, in the history of the UFL. So we were a part of it. Unfortunately, we were again on the losing end of it, but it was again just a wild game where Birmingham just really couldn't get a lot of things going offensively. You had Chase Cookis coming in making his first start. You somehow, some way, on a 63-yard field goal attempt, allow a kick six to happen in favor of Memphis. So that gave that put a touchdown on the board for the Showboats. And from there on out, you have to give Birmingham credit. They were able to come back, drive down the field in the last couple minutes of the ball game, tie it up, send it to overtime. But unfortunately, just weren't able to convert there in the extra periods. And Memphis was, and I know there's some controversy. I guess kind of a close call on what you had from Memphis when they were able on one of their conversions. And, well, did he cross? Did he not cross? But the reality is the Stallions did not deserve to win that game. I know they had a chance too late, and it looked like maybe once they tied it into overtime that things were going to correct themselves. But unfortunately, not the case. So Birmingham's second loss on the season now to the previously winless Memphis Showboats.
That's what's sickening.
Yeah.
That's the sickening part, because Memphis was not they weren't a good football team. They were still trying to figure things out, and Birmingham just aided in that. Like, it was just Chase Cook we need our starting quarterback back bad.
Yes. So unfortunately, with Magoo and Matt Corral both dinged up, Case Cookis, he steps in. He goes 15 of 33, 145 through the air, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Did do some nice things on the ground, though. 6 carries for 83 yards to lead the Stallions in the run game as well. But yeah, just not quite enough there, especially early on for the Stallions as they fall to the Showboats 24-20 on Friday there in Protective Stadium. All right, getting back to your text, 205-834-9450. Some of y'all texting in about some other things going on around the NFL draft, not just the Shedeur stuff. So Mike chimes in. This is something I wanted to get to for sure. It says, was anybody as surprised as me that Isaiah Bond went undrafted? Well, I'll tell you what, Mike, I really hated to see that. That really just
Did you, Conrad?
really broke my heart for a guy like Isaiah Bond. And I think he is a very interesting example. And I wonder, I hope that people look at Isaiah Bond in the future. I'm not just talking about Alabama players. I'm talking about college football players in general, college athletes in general. Because you have a guy who made one of the most iconic plays in the history of Alabama football. He then decides that he wants more money to come back and be a member of a team that was, one play away from playing for a national championship. Alabama decides that they're not going to do that. And he finds out that he can make more money going to play for Texas. So he goes and plays for Texas, and I'll give him credit. He was hurt this year. That's a lot of what happened with him this year. He was hurt. But now you find yourself undrafted. You're going to have an opportunity to make a roster, right? He can still turn into a nice NFL receiver, right? That's still on the table for him. But what he's given up now is you are no longer tied to the University of Alabama in the sense of you are no longer going to be a part of that culture and that iconic moment from the Gravedigger play against Auburn. People will remember the play, but you want to come back and do autograph events? You want to come back and go and speak to local high schools? You want to go back and speak around the state of Alabama and relive that moment? No, you can't do that anymore.
Nope.
Because you're not an Alabama legacy anymore. That's not part of your legacy anymore.
Nope.
And so I think for some of these guys, what happened with Isaiah Bond is a very important moment to recognize this isn't just something that can impact you for the next year, the next 2 years, the next 3 years. This is something we're talking about 20 years down the line. What kind of opportunities are you going to have available to you? And are you not going to have available to you now because you're not tied to any one program? You don't have a connection. You don't have a place to call home anymore because you jumped around in the transfer portal. And I thought somebody on the opposite side made a really interesting argument. What made me think about that for Isaiah Bond is Quinn Ewers. Because I know some of you texted in, what about Quinn Ewers going 7th round to the Dolphins, which is what happened. And that's a guy that we had heard had been offered $6 million to come back and play college football this year. And you're now giving that up to go and make $800,000 a year in the NFL. But what does Quinn Ewers have? Quinn Ewers is a Texas quarterback. Quinn Ewers is the quarterback that brought Texas back to the national stage and back to relevance. And okay, maybe that's not going to help him out for the next 2 or 3 years. That sure as hell is going to help him out in 20 years when he's not playing football anymore. And so these are just the kind of situations that you wonder, do players look around at the landscape and start to pick up on these things and realize, man, is what I'm sacrificing for 1 year of going to get the bag at this other school that I have no ties to, I have no affiliation with, I have no connection to the fan base, is that worth it versus staying somewhere where I built a legacy and trying to establish that and cement that and then going off to the NFL? And yeah, maybe that means that I made $500,000 less my last year of college than I could have somewhere else. But in the long term, how much money did you make by staying put somewhere and building that legacy? I just hope that's the takeaway we get from these types of situations for a lot of these kids.
Yeah. And to your point about Isaiah Bond, I mean, he's dealing with some off the field issues as well. But I'm with you. It's one of those things you have to look at the bigger picture.
Yes.
Like you could have stayed at Alabama, finished your career, would have had pretty much an essential pipeline to
Yes.
the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. And you will forever be stamped as an Alabama legend. And then now, when you make that transfer, it's okay. Well, we know exactly where your mindset is. And again, you make the bed that you got to lay in it. Like you made this bed yourself. And on the Quinn Ewers thing, I mean, we all saw Quinn never really jumped out anyway. Like when you look at some of the throws that he was making, it's, oh my gosh, he put it right on the money. But then there's other throws, it's, okay, yeah, we can see the inconsistencies. It's hidden behind Steve Sarkisian's play call.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a lot of the talent around you is starting to elevate for you. So that's why it was kind of I didn't figure, I thought once we got past 5, 6, that all the quarterbacks are pretty much done. But if also you look at the situation, if you're at Miami, again, I know Tua is your favorite player. He's injury prone. Y'all ended up getting Zach Wilson in the offseason as the Dolphins. And now you're adding Quinn Ewers. So it's, I think Mike McDaniel probably looking at, okay, the system, if all else, if the worst case scenario, Quinn Ewers has to play as a rookie, he's a 7th round pick. It's the people around him that are going to make him look a lot better than he is. You got Devon Achane in the backfield. You got Tyreek Hill. I mean, it's a bunch of speed. Jalen Waddle. It's kind of similar to what he was already doing at Texas, where everything around me is a lot better than what I truly am, but I can find a way to give him the football. But now it's just, now you're doing it against the elite of the elite on the other side. And again, you're a 7th round pick. It's, if you even make the 53, it's kudos to you, my brother. Nobody's really expecting you to go out there and play. But in the event that you do and your number does get called, the pieces around you will make you look a lot better than you really are.
That's a very fair point. But yeah, so if you missed the news, Quinn Ewers, he is a 7th round pick. He goes to the Dolphins to back up my guy Tua. Isaiah Bond, the former Alabama and Texas receiver, he goes undrafted and still has yet to sign with a team as of last check. But we will continue to monitor. And we have a lot of guys. Again, we're going to be here until 10 o'clock filling in for McElroy and Kulik. So we do have a lot of guys, Alabama and Auburn guys, and other notable players from around the SEC that didn't get drafted, but they did sign free agent deals with a number of teams to try to go to camp and make these rosters. So a lot left to get to here from the NFL draft. We see you on the phone lines. We see your texts continuing to come in at 205-834-9450. And we will continue to get to those when we come back here on JOX 94.5.
6:51 here on Morning JOX, JOX 94.5. Damian Mitchell alongside Conrad Van Order. We're going to be here at the top of the hour as well at 7 o'clock as we fill in for McElroy and Kublik in the morning from 7 to 10. So keep it locked here on JOX 94.5. Let me tell you about my friends at Blue Chew. It's an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, Levitra, and Staxin in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew's tablets are performance enhancement for the bedroom and can help men gain extra confidence when it's time to perform. Like I told you, it's an online prescription, so you don't have to worry about going to the doctor, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line at the pharmacy because it ships right to your door. Let Blue Chew's licensed medical providers work with you to find the right ingredient for your strength prescription. Also, let me tell you about the free offer we got going on at BlueChew.com. You go to BlueChew.com, get your first month free when you use our promo code JOX at checkout. The only thing you are paying for is shipping, and it's usually about $5. It's simple. Go to BlueChew.com, promo code JOX, J-O-X, to receive your first month free. And, like I tell you every single time, just chew it and do it.
Well, over the weekend, we also had Major League Baseball action as the Atlanta Braves traveled out west to take on the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Atlanta Braves take 2 of 3 from Arizona, including a wild game on Saturday. The Braves went 8-7 and 10 innings there on Saturday, but Eugenio Suarez for the Diamondbacks had 4 home runs. 4 home runs in the same game, and the Braves still find a way to come out on top 8-7. They fall yesterday 6-4. They won the first game 8-2 back on Friday, but now a nice way to pick up a series win there before they head out to Colorado now for 3 games against the Rockies, who are the worst team in Major League Baseball, and it is really not even close. They are really bad. So this is good news for the Braves, hopefully able to pick up another series win here, at least 2 of 3, hopefully bring out the broomsticks, because then you return back home to Atlanta, and who is coming to Atlanta with you? That would be the LA Dodgers.
Oh, yeah.
Going to be a big series there in Atlanta coming up later this week, but first got to take care of business against the Rockies. So Atlanta will travel to Colorado, take on the Rockies. First game of that series tonight, 7:40 first pitch. You can hear that here on JOX 94.5. So another nice weekend for the Atlanta Braves as they now find themselves at 12-15, tied for last place in the National League East. But the good news is, so they're tied with the Marlins. They are a half game back of the Nationals, 4 back of Philadelphia, or 2.5 back of Philadelphia, and then 6.5 back of the Mets. So things turning around there for the Atlanta Braves. All right, we're going to wrap up here with some more of your text messages coming in about everything that happened over the weekend. Let's see. Somebody said, or Tim from Coleman says, Peyton Thorne and DJU both signed free agent deals. I threw a football in my yard a while back. Maybe I got signed this weekend too and just missed it. Yep.
That's fair.
It's like Oprah. Oh, you want a contract? You want a contract? You want a contract? Those were definitely a little bit surprising to me. Let's see. Jamie says, as a coach and front office personnel, would you want to have to put up with his antics and having Prime as daddy? There's no way I would have taken Shedeur Sanders on my team at all. Okay, but not even in the 5th round. Like, I understand early on you don't want to put. But we're talking about teams. They will deal with people with criminal records.
Exactly.
Kareem Hunt still has a job in the NFL, and we're okay with that. But you don't want to deal. And I understand the attitude stuff. I'm not saying it's great.
And this is
but in the 5th round.
This is the NFL, dog. If they don't want to deal with, they will cut you. Like, they will make sure that contract is out the door. Like, they do not care.
Wild stuff.
It's crazy.
Something tells me this conversation is going to continue into the next 3 hours as well. But appreciate you joining us here for the Monday edition of Morning JOX. Good news as we are back after this. McElroy and Kublik in the morning. Conrad Damian edition. 3 hours coming your way next.